Hello everyone, and thanks for coming. I'm Amelia Barracan. I'm a lecturer in art history here, and I'm just chairing this visual research series seminar in place of Gillian Whitlock, who sends her apologies for not being able to be with us this afternoon. So I am delighted to introduce Kathryn Fox, who is a Masters of Philosophy candidate in art history at the University of Queensland. I know because she is my student.
Yes.
And it is a great pleasure to work with Kathryn. I've been really interested to see how her research translates in this kind of forum in particular. The presentation is an overview of research examining how the contemporary Australian artists George Gittoes and Jon Cattapan depict contemporary militarised technology in their practice. And she pays particular attention in her work to representations of night vision goggles and drone airfare, so drone vision technology. Gittoes has witnessed the deployment of airborne drones, and both artists have worked in war and conflict zones where they have each used night vision technology. The research, Kathryn says, investigates how these experiences inform the artist's painting and practices in ways that trigger moral, ethical and political questions about the use and ongoing development of militarised technology. So please make Kathryn welcome.
Thank you, Amelia, and thank you everyone for coming along to listen to my talk. So, art and militarised technology. My research focuses on Australian artists George Gittoes and Jon Cattapan, as Amelia has just said. I examine how they represent contemporary militarised technology in their paintings, paying particular attention to unmanned air vehicles, commonly called drones, and night vision capabilities. My research probes how the artist's paintings are informed by contemporary militarised technology. In this presentation, I pay some consideration to the dehumanising processes of contemporary militarised technology and how the artist's paintings reveal them. My research draws upon art history, cultural studies, and research into the technical and operative aspects of drones and night vision capabilities. In this presentation, I will analyse one of George Gittoes' recent paintings and two of Cattapan's to demonstrate some of my research process. Contemporary militarised technology refers to technologies designed for or conscripted by the military to enhance and maintain tactical advantage. For example, surveillance, targeting and attack capabilities of remotely piloted drones are optimised through digital technologies, reliance on space-based assets such as GPS and communication satellites, and cyber interconnectivity. These technologies differentiate contemporary militarised technology from earlier electronic, analogue, largely manned and pre-satellite reliant technologies. Increasingly, blurred lines between civilian and military use of technology, such as GPS and communication satellites, is a worrying characteristic of the 21st century. So, who are George Gittoes and Jon Cattapan? Gittoes has worked in war and conflict zones as a painter, photojournalist and filmmaker since 1986, when he went to Nicaragua during the Sandinista Revolution. Subsequently, he has worked on his own volition in war zones such as Somalia, Cambodia, Rwanda, Gaza, Iraq, Pakistan, Congo, South Africa, Bosnia, Afghanistan and others. Gittoes has not worked as an official war artist, but occasionally has accompanied Australian peacekeepers in places such as Somalia in 1993 and Rwanda in 1995. In Rwanda, he witnessed the 3 days of slaughter during the Kibeho massacre. Gittoes has also witnessed airborne drone deployment in the Second Gulf War and in Afghanistan, where he has largely been based since 2011. Cattapan was Australia's 63rd official war artist in 2008 when he accompanied Australian peacekeeping forces in Timor-Leste. Both artists have used night vision glasses, Gittoes in Somalia and Cattapan in Timor-Leste. However, the artists' painterly responses to using night vision technology are different. So, to launch into the paintings, this is Gittoes' painting Night Vision 2015. It was painted for the Sydney Peace Prize, which Gittoes won in 2015. The painting draws upon his experiences using night vision glasses. It also reflects visits to northern Pakistan, to the tribal belt, and Gittoes' life in Jalalabad, Afghanistan, where surveillance and weaponised drones proliferate. In his diaries, Gittoes notes, quote, "Every 15 minutes we see an unmanned drone pass overhead and spy drones buzz above our garden continuously," unquote. Night Vision 2015 depicts a head with crosshair-marked rectangles painted over its eyes, mouth and one ear. The protruding prongs of night vision glasses further the obscuration. The head's wild and long blonde hair identifies that Gittoes has made himself a visual prop for the painting. The crosshair-marked black rectangles, although window-like, are references to drone camera scopes or computer screens used for surveillance and targeting by remote pilots. However, the two horizontal red lines that frame the entire composition make the painting a complex play of screens within a screen. Two guns and the night vision glasses signpost the militarised nature of the smaller screen's crosshair markings. The screens over the eyes, mouth and an ear evoke philosopher Gregoire Chamayou's suggestion in his 2015 book Drone Theory that, quote, drones have not only eyes but also ears and many other organs, unquote. This deceptive anthropomorphising description of an unmanned system refers to a drone's apparent capacity to listen and see, using its cameras and networks to identify individuals or groups whose physical, online or communication behaviour flags attention. Whilst identification can be personalised for direct targeting, called a personality strike, it may also mean that patterns of behaviour provoke what is called a signature strike, where the victim's identity is unknown. In either case, the drone can quickly turn from sensor mode to rapid response killing mode, where hellfire and guided missiles are launched. Gittoes' dexterous play with screens poses the question, is Night Vision 2015 a representation of a drone's target, a representation of a drone, or both? The screens painted over the head's mouth, eyes and ear are black, except for the white crosshair markings. Their empty blackness may indicate that drones, in fact, cannot see or hear everything, perhaps confirming media theorist Mark Andreevich's observation in Theorising Drones and Droning Theory that the neo-pragmatic processes of contemporary technological interactivity elide, quote, the realm of the subconscious, desire and psychoanalytic subject, unquote. Andreevich uses the term neo-pragmatism to explain the difference between automated processes of data collection and analysis and traditional modes of interpretation. In terms of the drone, a target is not necessarily a subject that speaks. Rather, its generated and automatically collected data acts as a pragmatic, voiceless, dehumanised proxy. In 2014, retired director of the NSA, General Michael Hayden made a statement that reveals the significance of the pragmatic data proxy approach. He said, "We kill people based on metadata." Of Night Vision 2015, Gittoes has said, soldiers target... It's not going. There we go. Has said, soldiers target with laptops as remote death streams onto computer screens, detached from the real blood that splatters the streets and fields. The remote manner of scoping an attack elides the victim's subjecthood as the soldier's detachment from the reality of bloodletting and the aftermath of destruction impeaches their own. The black screens represent the fact that neither victim nor the perpetrator can really see each other. The victim's eyes are sightlessly dead, subjecthood mortally annihilated. The remote pilot, however, becomes a symbol of what international relations commentator Christian Enemark calls a post-heroic age, where just war theories are eroded. He observes that armed and pilotless drones create a radical asymmetry that disallows reciprocity, thus rupturing notions of honourable conduct in the battlefield. A moral and ethical abyss is sheared open. Night Vision 2015 shows the viewer the inside of this abyss burial chamber where both the victim and the perpetrator now reside. The question is posed, is humanity drawn into this abyss too? In 1997, Paul Virilio described the screen in open sky as the square horizon that causes, quote, confusion of near and far, of inside and outside, disorders of common perception that will gravely affect the way we think, unquote. His warning of eroded perception is demonstrated in Night Vision 2015's black and depthless screens. Mark Featherstone's description of Virilio's square horizon screen as a negative abyss provides a further way to understand Gittoes' black screens and background as signs of an abyss. Military slang terms like bug splat, coined to describe how a drone attack looks on a computer screen, signal Virilio's warning of disorders of common perception. The squashed insect analogy metaphorically transforms the computer screen into a boot, a fly swat, or a windscreen covered in the smashed remains of insects annihilated upon impact. The analogy transforms human victims into insects and those that target them into exterminators. The computer screen, however, does not need to be cleaned of its virtual bug splat in the same way as a boot or a windscreen. A computer's on-off, shutdown or restart mechanisms clean in a way that spells the arrival of what Featherstone calls the techno-abyss, where the destruction of the human is summoned by loss or mutation of identity. The interchangeable identity of the head in Night Vision 2015 plays with this sense of loss and mutation. Indeed, the protruding night vision glasses and the head's spiky hair create an insect-like bug splat appearance at the same time as the glasses and guns convey the exterminator's apparatus. So, where is peace, you might ask? It seems lost in the abyss where Virilio's disorders of common perception are virtually mediated by the neo-pragmatic processes of technological interactivity identified by Andrejevic. In Night Vision 2015, Gittoes teases with his painted dove, a symbol of peace. It flutters below the green screen, perhaps a 21st century window avatar, a decoy, an ambush, or an escape route. Gittoes offers clues to the dove's role in the following statement. The First World War industrialised killing, but in 2015 it is computerised, and with night vision it can target anyone, anywhere. Like the dove in my painting, we need to use art and creativity to confront this blind military madness. To shed light on war and peace in the digital and cyber age, Picasso's Dove of Peace, chosen as the emblem for the first International Peace Conference in Paris in 1949, can be contrasted with Gittoes' dove. Picasso's first peace dove is rendered realistically, perched on the ground, wings folded. 66 years later, Gittoes' dove, depicted in high flight, symbolises peace's ongoing precarious situation. Picasso's 1949 dove was a witness to the shift nuclear weapons brought to industrialised war. Gittoes' dove acts as a witness to another shift, one where computerised killing foreshadows the next revolution in warfare, the use of increasingly autonomous weapons requiring minimal or no human input. In Night Vision 2015, the head of blind black screens seems oblivious to the dove's presence, unable to see or detect it. Although the dove is positioned in front of the screens, it is not even reflected in any of them. The painting suggests that the headed screens, simultaneously representing a drone and a drone's victim, cannot see or identify peace. The implication is that peace cannot even be imagined. By presenting evidence that the human eye, as well as the mind's eye of imagination, are blinded, Night Vision 2015 augurs a future where peace has no presence, even in imagination. The apparatus of network militarised vision technology is exposed as a means to incrementally exclude as well as potentially annihilate the human being. This represents an extreme blindness which reframes war and its future in ways that proffer perpetual world war as the norm. Night Vision 2015 discloses a political blindness to a new global arms race where developments in militarised technology are driven by perceived military needs in future war. This is demonstrated in the opening speech of the Land Forces 2016 conference and trade show held in Adelaide. Lieutenant General Angus Campbell, Australian Chief of the Army, talked of the importance of science, engineering and technology research, quote, informed by concepts of future of war, unquote. Forums held in conjunction with the event included Future Land Forum Conference and Unmanned Systems of Defence Conference. The focus on the future of war indicates an imagination that has been militarised. Whilst defence and security are bandied as motivations for military preparedness, a neoliberal market forces also exhort militarised imaginations. A future focus requisitions ongoing research and development for new military products and updates on existing ones. Perpetual war ensures a perpetual market. In Night Vision 2015, the two blue guns pose multiple malign possibilities. The blood-red tipped barrels mirror the red outline around the screen painted over the head's mouth. Have these lips triumphantly kissed the bloody guns? Here, Gittoes theatrically evokes an old-fashioned Wild West gun and slinger. In doing so, he places the image within a gun-toting cultural vernacular where frontier and urban violence, terrorism, war and filmic history collide. By evoking a gun-toting vernacular, Gittoes places contemporary war and its technology in an historical narrative that links them to maverick lawlessness. Night Vision 2015 draws attention to a fetishisation of weapons and their capabilities, evident in popular culture and in the slick promotional media produced for companies that manufacture militarised technology. But along with the red horizontal lines that frame the entire composition, the red tipped guns and the red frame screen covertly draw attention to the deadliness of a drone's persistent scoping and targeting capabilities. Gittoes enhances this by painting the night vision glasses the same blue as the two guns. The inference is that screen-based night vision surveillance and targeting technologies aid lethal weaponry that can target anyone, anywhere. Fetishisation of weapons is revealed as a seductively dangerous tool to militarise imagination. The necklace head of screens foreshadows lethal autonomous weapons. Indeed, the head's body and human senses of sight, hearing and taste have been discarded in preference for pragmatic scoping apparatus. The erosion of the human and human control is evident. The two guns could be the weaponised arms of another robotised combatant. Here, a complex play between warrior, weapon and victim presents Enemark's proposition of the disembodied warrior as the weapon, possibly an autonomous one. Virilio's ideas of doping, addiction and amputation, where a sense of self is eradicated by screen-based virtual technologies, figure as contributing processes of this disembodiment. Gittoes' concerns for the future are clear in a statement made in reference to Night Vision 2015 and drones. When talking about going to villages where drone attacks have occurred, he says, "We can smell the death and the tears of the grieving families, but the people who released the bombs are insulated from the pain they are causing. My fear is that robotising the military is happening without the general public being aware of it, and unmanned enforcers will be upon us." It is salient to note that in 2012, a US Department of Defence directive outlining research into autonomy in weapon systems includes applications for, quote, "the design, development, acquisition, testing, fielding and employment of autonomous and semi-autonomous weapon systems, including guided munitions that can independently select and discriminate targets," unquote. Gittoes' concerns are also echoed by many scientists and AI developers. In 2015, the International Joint Conference on Artificial Intelligence issued Autonomous Weapons Open Letter from AI and Robotics Researchers, calling for a ban on offensive autonomous weapons beyond meaningful human control. I now turn to Jon Cattapan's painting, Night Patrols Around Maliana, painted in 2009. Cattapan had two requests when he was asked by the Australian War Memorial to be an official war artist. One was to be able, unlike some other recent war artists, to get out of the military bases to experience being with troops, particularly on night patrols. The second request was to have access to night vision technology gear. Both requests were met in Timor-Leste in 2008 because the peacekeeping nature of the Australian military presence meant that, whilst it wasn't without danger, it wasn't as dangerous as going to an active battlefield. In the year following his return from Timor-Leste, Cattapan completed paintings commissioned by the Australian War Memorial. These include a major work, his triptych, Night Patrols Around Maliana. Cattapan has harnessed the green glow of night vision glasses by saturating high foregrounds with shades of green that dissolve into Prussian blue night skies. Dashes of cadmium and crimson red signal hotspots, perhaps identified by thermal imaging capabilities in augmented night vision technology. Over the top of these dark but vibrant backgrounds, Cattapan has painted computer graphic-like markings. Figures of soldiers loom in the foreground of each panel. They oscillate between appearance and disappearance, reality and virtuality. Cattapan has also painted contour-like lines across the top sections of each panel. These recall maps used during peacekeeping briefings he attended. These lines immediately distort perspective by introducing an aerial-like view over the ambiguous frontal viewpoint. This distortion helps Cattapan channel, in his own words, the incredibly dreamlike and otherworldly experience of using a night vision monocle. Cattapan, who had studied computer science for a year before going to art school, has painted pale green dots that stand for bytes of data. The combination of distorted perspective dots and lines gives the appearance of digital surveillance graphics laid over topographical images. The three panels take on the appearance of multiple screens. For example, screens used by remote drone pilots or screens in a military operations room. The viewer realises they may not be surveilling a landscape through the night vision monocle worn by the artist, but rather images relayed onto screens. Cattapan has explained that night patrols around Maliana does not depict an exact location in Timor-Leste. Rather, it is an amalgamation of various in situ drawings and photographs, which he used later in his Melbourne studio to create the painting. By amalgamating imagery, Cattapan collapses time and place. This allows Timor-Leste's contested history of Portuguese colonisation, Indonesian invasion, violent battles for independence and ongoing UN-supported peacekeeping efforts to resonate. In doing this, the painting is accessible for more generalised notions of war and conflict occurring over time and around the globe. Here, Cattapan's own words explaining an unexpected reaction to going to Timor-Leste help us understand. He said, "Suddenly and almost forevermore, I began to understand that conflict is all around us and that the notion of war fought in an old-fashioned way, that's gone. We're in a state of perpetual motion where conflict is always there, hovering." In night patrols around Maliana, the ghost-like figures and the disorienting map-like markings that float across the green background suggest the pervasive hovering nature of contemporary war and conflict. Although the map-like markings float over the terrain connecting each panel, the terrain itself does not entirely match up. Each panel could be at a different location, or the same location but at different times of the night, or perhaps different nights. Here, a tension between orientation and disorientation of time and place become a signpost for Cattapan's observation that we're in a state of perpetual motion where conflict is always there, hovering. His insight into the pervasive nature of contemporary war and conflict is more brutally iterated in Chamayou's proposal that as a result of the increasingly persistent surveillance technology used by drones, the whole world has become a potential manhunting ground. With ideas of orientation and disorientation in mind, plus Cattapan's clever plays with computer graphic-like markings, Night Patrols Around Maliana provides visual articulation for Jean Baudrillard's three-part 1991 essay provocation about the First Gulf War. These are: the Gulf War will not take place, the Gulf War, is it really taking place, and the Gulf War did not take place. Whilst the essays refer to Iraq and Cattapan's painting is ostensibly Timor-Leste, in an age where technology blurs boundaries, they can both be untethered from specific locations and time. Baudrillard's prosecution that the First Gulf War was a virtual war transmitted through the screen, pronounced via the subterfuge of decoy, broadcast by the media and embalmed in a self-referencing simulation, can be applied to subsequent conflicts. Cattapan's observation that conflict is all around us, in perpetual motion, reverberates with Baudrillard's proposition that the virtual has merged where was traditional trajectory of declaration, action and end into a loop that perpetuates war. Night Patrols Around Maliana plays with this loss of temporal trajectories because any of the panels could represent, in any combination, a beginning, middle or an end. Equally, it is easy to imagine additional panels in an endless image where virtual mapping simulates connection in a substitute landscape. As real landscape falls away, humanity is placed in a precarious position, hovering on the edge of or between reality and virtuality. I now turn to Night Figures Glencoe, also painted in 2009, to explore Cattapan's process even further. Painted after night patrols around Maliana, Night Figures Glenno is an important painting as it marks the point where Cattapan allows background paint to drip and coalesce. It is a departure from his long-term technique of painting amorphous backgrounds with fanned brushstrokes that blend colour. Rather, initial strokes made with brushes laden with paint are allowed to drip down the canvas, cutting into other strokes to continue dripping or coalescing. Cattapan described to me that he felt an urgency to create work in Timor-Leste, but he could not, due to the lack of space and materials needed for large-scale paintings. He went on to say that the sense of urgency stayed with him when he returned to his Melbourne studio. It acted as a driver for changes that reflect a visceral human response to an immersive military experience. He decided, quote, to try to do something completely different, to see if I could rupture what had gone before, unquote. He spoke to me about falling into the work and letting it go. Allowing the paint to drip has precipitated changes in the way he painted his figures also. They became even more spectral light-like, not as filled in or modelled. In Night Figures Glenno, the dripped background and spectrally outlined figures painted over the top heighten the sense of hovering or free-falling seen in night patrols around Maliana. In Night Figures Glenno, we see a four-wheel drive and a group of indefinable figures standing in an equally indefinable landscape. The figures are witnessing or waiting for something. The night vision green places the scene within a military environment, but whilst somewhat menacing, the exact situation is unclear. Unlike night patrols around Maliana, Cattapan has saturated the entire background with the glow of night vision green. The spectral light figures, the vehicle and landscape markings are painted in pale tones, with small and narrow drawing-like brushstrokes and dots. These markings vary in density due to how much paint was on the brush when it was stroked across the canvas. The pressure the artist applies to the brush and the weave of the canvas also affect how markings appear. Here, the resulting inconsistent outlining amplifies the spectral appearance of figures, vehicle and landscape, occupying a space that seems to be slipping away. The figures stand on a skeletal-like ground of lines and markings that attempt to delineate a pictorial perspective, but the downward drip marks of the green paint in the background create a vertical slippage that plays havoc with this attempt. The viewer feels that they are there, but with the figures, but also not there, perhaps hovering, dripped out of the bottom of the paint along with the residual paint, landscape and perhaps reality also. The dripped, bleeding-like paint represents the loss or removal of the human, with the digital maintaining a data proxy in the form of Cattapan's computer graphic-like spectral figures. As Cattapan says of wearing the night vision monocle, quote, certainly there were ghosts to be had scoping out the local terrain like this, and in these moments I was there, but not there. This takes on menacing tones when we peer into where an horizon might be. Cattapan has painted rough lines that could simultaneously be mountains or topographical map markings, but they dissolve into fragments scattered across the right foreground. Reality via landscape is dissolved and fragmented into bits and bytes of information. Cattapan has painted signs of digital management along the top of the painting, making visible through a kind of caricature of signs the infrastructure digital technologies operatively rely upon. Here I briefly mention forensic architecture as a way to analyse Cattapan's post-Timor-Leste paintings. Forensic architecture, developed by E.L. Wiseman and a team at Goldsmiths in London, is an emerging investigative process that examines how, quote, the built environment is both the means of violations and a source of evidence that can bear witness to the events that traversed it, unquote. Physical and media remnants of sites where past atrocities and war crimes have occurred are used to build evidence that can be virtualised and relived in ways that are admissible in various legal and advocacy arenas. It is significant that since returning from Timor-Leste and realising war is all around us, Cattapan's increasing use of dripped paint plus unformed but outlined figures suggests the removal of the human. The erasure can be seen as a visceral leakage, substituted by ghostly spectral data proxies. His paintings play with erasure and virtualisation, appearance and disappearance in ways that provoke questions. Is Cattapan recording the processes of dehumanisation, or is he virtualising forensic architecture-like evidence to prosecute a major crime against humanity? Its insidious disappearance. In conclusion, Gittoes and Cattapan's paintings prod or perhaps reawaken human imagination in ways that provoke questions about humanity's fate in an era where developments in militarised technology are driven by notions of future war. In different ways, each artist provokes questions about the increasingly blurred lines between military and civilian use of technology and the ramifications for humanity. Painting becomes a soft weapon, contrarily requiring no digital or cyber technology to wield multiple messages. The artists are revealed as complex and seditious warriors who acknowledge the past, critique the present, and reach into the future, covertly tracking with all eyes open where militarised imaginations have already infiltrated.